Welcome to the show. I'm Danella, and here's what's happening now. This week in Political Pop, we'll talk about tariffs and trade wars. Also on deck, for the second year in a row, pedestrian deaths are on the rise. We'll talk about what is distracting pedestrians and what can we do about it. Also, in Our World is on deck this week, we're celebrating Women's History Month. The question I have is, on the fight to equality, is there a way to do so without alienating men? We'll get into more of that in just a moment. But first, let's just kick the show off with Political Pop. Here is your Political Pop for Friday, March 9th. This week, economic advisor Gary Cohn announced his plans to resign as the U.S. prepares for a possible trade war. Nobody's got time for that. Let's talk about Cohn, man. He was the voice of reason. Many considered him a voice of reason. I say one of the few in the Oval Office. But yes, he was firmly against Trump and these tariffs on steel and aluminum, and that was the final straw. He announced his plans to resign. Well, now what? With new tariffs, the big question is, how will the countries that are affected will retaliate? Well, let's talk about China, for example. China loves soybeans. In fact, the U.S. is one of the largest exporters of soybeans to China. They could retaliate. Other countries like China could retaliate. And what does Trump say? What has he said about a possible trade war? Well, he said this on Twitter a while back. He said, trade wars are good. Well, unfortunately, the American people, we're about to find out. And that was your Political Pop. Now let's talk about powerful storms last weekend. Okay, so first we'll start in the U.S. and specifically Maine. Last week's powerful storm battered the Northeast and also uncovered a wrecked ship. They're saying it could date back to the Revolutionary War. This was found on a beach in York, Maine. If you're listening on SoundCloud and haven't seen it, you can head over to my YouTube page, DanellaNOW on YouTube, or even Google it to see the wreckage. And now we'll head over to the UK. So in the UK, this hurt my heart to see this. Thousands of dead starfish washed up on British beaches. They're calling it Starfish Armageddon. Again, due to last week's unseasonably cold weather. A beach in Kent, that's southeastern England, as well as Yorkshire. The locals say they've never seen anything like it. One section of the beach reportedly tens of thousands of dead starfish. And in Yorkshire, reports say that dead marine animals were ankle deep in places. So sad. I don't see how you can look at pictures like this and hear stories like this and still question climate change. All right, let's jump back here at home. I mentioned it just a few moments ago. A new study is out saying that pedestrian deaths are on a rise for the second year in a row. So let's talk about the study and we'll break it down. The study was actually done, it's a report by the Governor's Highway Safety Association. And here's what they say. In 2017, nearly 6,000 pedestrians were killed. What's at the center of it? They're saying distracted drivers as well as distracted pedestrians. But what's distracting people? A couple things they're thinking. First, they say smartphones. And they also say marijuana. We'll start with smartphones. So with smartphones, they say this. Many are thinking of putting up signs that say no texting while walking. Similar to, you see them all along the road when you're driving, right? Watch out, don't be a distracted driver, don't text and drive. Well, now they're thinking about putting up more signs to get people's attention to put down their phones. Now, in addition, they're thinking of adopting ordinances like they have in Honolulu as well as Montclair, California. There, they have ordinances saying no texting while walking across the street. Now, let's jump over to marijuana. I did not know this, but here's what this study says. That increased marijuana use is a potential factor in causing increased deaths. So in 7 states, as well as in the District of Columbia, these are all the areas that have legalized marijuana. What they have found is this, is that in 2017, pedestrian deaths increased 16.4%. Well, how does that compare with the rest of the country that has not legalized marijuana? Well, in those areas, pedestrian deaths have gone down. Yeah, they fell by 5.8%. So this study is saying they're not quite sure if that's a factor, but they feel that it should be looked at. It definitely should be looked at. So what can we do? I like this quote. It's actually by Rebecca Linland. She is an auto analyst for Blue Book. Here's what she said. She said, we've got distracted drivers and we've got distracted pedestrians, and that is a deadly combination. She also says at some point in time, people, both behind the wheel and walking in the street, have to take responsibility for their behavior and put down the phone. I concur, and I add this. I say, we also need to pay more attention at night. And that's because the study says that 74% of pedestrian fatalities occur at night. So at night, you have to be very cautious while walking across the street or driving. And also they say this, pedestrians, please walk in the freaking intersection. If you live in a major city, you know what I'm talking about. Maybe not in California. I think they tend to adhere to the rules. At least in LA, I've seen people crossing the crosswalks. Man, New York, DC, oh my goodness, pedestrians crossing, not in the crosswalk, all over. And they say that fatalities for pedestrians not walking in intersections are 72%. So I guess if you merge that together, definitely walk in the intersection cautiously at night. And my final thing to add is for marijuana smokers. I have heard this before. I've not agreed with this, but I've heard it. People say, I'm a better driver when I smoke weed because I'm calmer. So I ask you this, has anyone ever said, I love smoking weed because it makes me so alert and I respond so quickly? Said no one ever. No one ever says that. So please, if you're smoking, okay, please do not get behind the wheel of a car. I know you got places to go. So maybe wait till you're not high or get to where you're going and then get high, because it's not just your great driving skills that you can count on. You have to look out for the other drivers and, more importantly, the pedestrians. And I just had to report this story. I spent a few years being a traffic anchor, and I remember it used to hurt my heart to have to report about pedestrian deaths. It was very difficult for me to make those reports. And once I saw this, I said, please, we just have to bring it to people's attention, because I see it all the time, people walking and looking at their phones. And I hear about it all the time. I don't want to say I see, but I do hear a lot of people smoke and drive. So please think twice. And now we'll move on to In Our World. This week we celebrated International Women's Day, and all month long, Happy Women's History Month. So I hope you're celebrating the women in your life, not only today, but every single day. And also women, I hope that during this time you're embracing other women. We're supporting other women as we go on this journey to equality together. And what I want to talk about is this idea, because so often in life we hear, if you value yourself, then somehow that means that you must devalue someone else. I think that is a very strong misconception, but you do hear that a lot. You do hear that a lot. And I want to talk about it as it relates to Women's History Month. And the reason I want to do that, because I want to talk to you about some of the things I've heard in my female circles, professionally as well as personally. I can say it. As a woman, it does get very frustrating to know that you can work twice as hard and you still get paid less than your male counterpart. Happens all the time, you know? And also, even in marriages, you get frustrated a lot. Most of the times, the women have to bring home the bacon, fry the bacon up, if you eat bacon, serve the bacon, then clean the dishes for the bacon, put the baby down. You know, you have to do all of that. Right. And so it can get very frustrating. And so what I've been hearing, and this has been worrying me, because as the movement continues to get women's equality, as we continue to bring awareness to the inequality, these things are beautiful. But I think that we have to be very careful not to alienate men in the process. Because it's easy, especially if you are tired, you're frustrated. And some of the things that I'm hearing is this idea of wanting all women on top and men being second class. I have heard that. I'm going to admit it. And I think that that is very, very dangerous. It's very dangerous. The reason that it's so dangerous is because balance is important. Balance is important in our world. Equality is important in our world. And there has to be a way in which we continue to support women, grow one another, help one another, encourage one another to be treated equally, yet not alienate men. I find myself in this situation quite often. I work through these struggles even in my own marriage sometimes of not getting frustrated specifically with my husband or specifically when I work with men, but more frustrated with the system. And I try to guide myself and allow love to lead me in helping to talk about equality and helping to demand equality. And when I say love, meaning guide with love as opposed to anger. And I'm not saying anybody in particular is doing this. I can only speak to what I am hearing. And so I keep hearing it so frequently. It's really on my heart to just share the importance of balance in the world that we live in. And as we shape our future, I wholeheartedly believe that we have to bring others with us, both women and men. As women, embracing our sisterhood, being supportive of other women, being congratulatory to other women, working on not being jealous of other women, but seeing that when other women win, we each win. But also bringing our men along. We can still win. We can still have equality. We can still demand our worth without leaving men behind. I thank you so much for joining the show again this week. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Those of you that are watching on YouTube, thank you so much for coming back again and spending your time with me. So as always, I hope you have an incredible weekend, and I will see you next week.